Jesus is all the world to me. Page 184. Jesus is all the world to me, my life, my joy, my all. He is my strength from day to day. Without him I would fall. When I am sad, to him I go. No other one can cheer me so. When I am sad, he makes me glad. He's my friend. Jesus is all the world to me. I want no better friend. I trust him now. I'll trust him when life's fleeting days shall end. Beautiful life with such a friend. Beautiful life that has no end. Eternal life, eternal joy. He's my friend.
I mean, I appreciate Jimmy leading us in a song tonight. I appreciate you guys being here. If you want to look in Luke chapter 19, first 10 verses, I told you this morning, common guy, everybody knows about this fella. We're going to talk about another one of these encounters of Jesus with individual people and how he dealt with them. And if you remember, all these encounters are different. Jesus meets people right where they're at with their problems, presuppositions, intellectual capacities, where they're at. Jesus meets you there and he deals with you. This is the fifth one in our series. And I'm going to call this one Isolated by Sin but Found by Grace, because that's kind of what happened to Zacchaeus. So we're going to look at the first 10 verses. If you want to stand with me, we'll read these first 10 in Luke chapter 19, and we'll see what it says about Zacchaeus. He entered Jericho and was passing through, and there was a man called by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector, and he was rich. Zacchaeus was trying to see who Jesus was and was unable because of the crowd, for he was small in stature. So he ran on ahead and climbed up into a sycamore tree in order to see him, for he was about to pass through the way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for today I must stay at your house. And he hurried and came down and received him gladly. When they saw it, they all began to grumble, saying, he has gone to the guest of a man who is a sinner. Zacchaeus stopped and said to the Lord, Behold, Lord, half of my possessions I will give to the poor, and if I have defrauded anybody of anything, I will give back 4 times as much. And Jesus said to him, Today salvation has come to this house, because he too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost. Thank you. You can be seated. I appreciate you standing for this. Look at the first 2 verses in this chapter, because I want to kind of plow ahead with it, but I want to break it up into sections. And the first 2 verses is the first section. And it describes a guy named Zacchaeus. And what we're going to call this is being isolated by your sinful choices. All this is his choice. He's a Jew, just like Matthew, Levi. Look at the difference. Look at the way it describes him. He was a chief tax collector. Matthew was a tax collector. In other words, this guy, in as far as prestige in the Roman Empire, he was much higher than Matthew. He would have been over folks like Matthew. He would have been more wealthy than Matthew. He would have been more politically empowered than Matthew. And so when you look at this, Zacchaeus would have had much more to lose by coming to Jesus, and he was also much more hated than Matthew even was, because of his choices. Look at what everybody's thinking. Everybody's thinking about Zacchaeus a couple of things. Number one, this guy's loaded. He's very, very wealthy. It's not because he worked hard. He didn't sell insurance or do honest labor. he was cheating folks. That's his job. It's so people like Matthew would have had meetings with people like Zacchaeus, and Zacchaeus would have said to Matthew, charge the people this much, and he would have really made it higher than what it should have been, because Matthew was going to get a cut, and then Zacchaeus was going to get a bigger cut than what Matthew got, and then the government was going to get their share. So they're really inflating these taxes, and everybody knows it's because of people like Zacchaeus. It's these chief tax collectors. They're the ones that are setting these tax rates. Kind of like our county commissioners now set the millage rate on everything. That's what he does. And so everybody's looking at Zacchaeus, and they're saying, look, dude, you're loaded, you're wealthy, but you're also a Jew, so you're one of us. So you're rich. You're just like a politician that's lining his pockets by smiling while taking your money. And he's one of them. So he's betraying his people. They don't like him. They're upset about it, and but he's getting rich off of it. Now look at the setup of Zacchaeus, because it happens to us. When we think about our life, wrong choices build big walls. That's what happens. You make wrong choices, those walls go up. Zacchaeus had made a series of decisions that led him to this place of isolation. It's all his choice. Nobody made him do it. Nobody forced him. This is Zacchaeus' his thing. He didn't just kind of trip and fall into the role. He chose it. He probably contacted somebody in Rome, and he betrayed his own people for money. It is his choice, his decision. It's a wrong choice, but it built up this huge wall. He climbed the ladder of success, like a lot of us like to do. But every rung on the ladder that he went up took him further and further away from people. So while he's down on the bottom, he's just an ordinary Jewish guy, got all these friends, family, acquaintances, and then he starts working for Rome, and he works his way up. He starts off like Matthew. He's just a tax collector. Then he works up, and he's chief. Every rung that he gets up, the higher on the ladder he goes, the further he alienates himself from everybody else. The more distance he puts between him and everybody else. He climbed this ladder. He made a name for himself. He made money. He made wealth. He got all this stuff. And he's doing it by hurting the people he's supposed to love. These are people that are supposed to be his family, his kinsmen, his countrymen. It's kind of like the old saying, you ever heard somebody climb a ladder of success and they realize when they get to the top it's leaning against the wrong wall? That's what happened to him. He made all this success, he made all these great things, and he didn't really benefit. Imagine playing a game of Monopoly, and I haven't played Monopoly in years, but people who play Monopoly get really into playing Monopoly. And imagine that you're winning. You've got Boardwalk, Park Place, you got hotels everywhere, you got all this money, big pile of money, and you start gloating. Hey, I'm winning. I own all these hotels. And then imagine somebody says to you, hey, you do realize this is just a game, right? That's kind of what happened to Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus did all this stuff, and then at the end of his run, at the end of this, when he's going to meet Jesus, he kind of starts to realize, which is why he wants to meet Jesus in the first place, that he's not really gaining anything. I mean, he's got all this stuff, he's got all this wealth, he's accumulating things, but at the end of the day, all the stuff goes back in the box and gets put on the shelf, and it's just a game, really. He won. I mean, if you look at Zacchaeus' life, he won. I mean, he had all the stuff. He got the money, but he lost every relationship. So Zacchaeus has come to the point in his life where he's heard all these stories about Jesus. He's down in Jericho. As a matter of fact, I've been to Jericho, and I don't know if this is true. I doubt it. But the guides in Jericho told us on the corner of the street in Jericho, there's a big sycamore tree. I mean, this thing is massive. It's huge. They say it's the same one that he climbed in. I don't know. I don't say I could live that long, but some of those olive trees do. So who knows? But when he gets ready to meet Jesus, he does that because he realizes that he's isolated. I mean, he's lost everything. He's got bank account after bank account and robes and all these things. But at the end of the day, here's what's happening. He goes out to his office, he does his job, then he goes back home to this big house. He's probably got the biggest house in Jericho, big nice place to live in, but he eats dinner all by himself. He's probably got this big, massive, nice wood table, but he's sitting there all by himself. He's eating by himself. There's nobody to talk to. Why? Because sin isolates you. Sin has a tendency to pull you away from the flock. I mean, that's what Satan wants to do. He's wanting to pull you away from everybody else, because in the wild, the lions attack the zebras or the antelopes or the gazelle that get separated from the herd. And that's what he wants to do with you. He wants to isolate us. So all this sin creeps in, pulls us away, and then we're pretty much easy pickings for Satan. That's Zacchaeus. He won all this, but at the end of the day, he's all by himself. Listen to what Isaiah says in Isaiah 59, verse 2. But your iniquities have made a separation between you and your God, and your sins have hidden his face from you so that he does not hear. Sin always promises community. You're always drinking buddies. It promises pleasures. You'd have all this fun. But in the end, all it ever delivers is isolation and pain. There's never an upside to it. And so that's what sin does. Also, sin, in Zacchaeus' case, in our case, sin doesn't just hurt you, it hurts other people around you. You don't sin in a vacuum. When you sin, it hurts other people. Zacchaeus wasn't just isolated with what he did to himself, but because of what he did to other people. His choice wounded others. And so by him choosing to betray his people, work for Rome, cheat his people, working for Rome wouldn't have been that big a deal had he not been cheating his people like he did. And so because he did that, it hurt them too. I mean, his friends lost their homes because they couldn't pay his rates. His friends lost their businesses because they couldn't pay his rates. A lot of his friends probably ended up homeless and destitute and begging for money because of what he did. And so his choice just didn't isolate him. It isolated a whole community of folks. It wounded other people. It robbed them. It left them really bitter, really discouraged, really angry with him. And so when you read this story, it's really interesting to me. Look at verse 3, for example. Zacchaeus was trying to see who Jesus was and was unable because of the crowd. Why do you think he was unable because of the crowd? Because nobody liked him to let him up to the front. He's back there, again, I got these weird pictures. When I always picture these characters in movies, and Danny DeVito, I think in a nice Roman flowing robe with all these Roman rings on. I think he'd fit this part pretty good. And he's in the back of the crowd. All these people are lined up because Jesus is coming. Everybody hears about Jesus. He's coming down from Jerusalem to Jericho. And this guy's trying to push through the crowd. And when people turn around and see who it was, they're like, linking arms, holding him out. They're not going to let him up there. Had it been just a child or another small person, they'd probably let him get up front because they could see over him, but not him. And so he's pushing through because he's hurt other people. He's isolated himself, and nobody wants to be around him. That's how sin works. It doesn't just mess up your heart. It affects your witness. It affects your relationships. It affects your peace. And for Zacchaeus, he found that out the hard way. And I hope that you and I can avoid finding stuff out like this the hard way. He had gained the whole world, Zacchaeus did, but he lost his connection with God and with his fellow man. He had no relationships to speak of. And I would say it's funny to me. It's not really funny. It's sad. A lot of people today are still trying to buy that happiness like Zacchaeus did. Because they think it's going to gain them something, and it don't. They get big houses. They get big trucks. They get big bank accounts. But some of those people are the loneliest people you'll ever meet. Because they don't have anybody around them because they've hurt those. People think that they have it all. They really don't have it all. They just kind of fooling themselves. So here's an application question, and I hope none of us are in this boat, but is there anything that you and I are trading, is there anything that we're sacrificing for the approval of God and others? In other words, is there something we're supposed to be doing for God, and we're we're not. We're doing something opposite, and it's sacrificing our relationship to God and to other people. In other words, what are we putting between our relationship with Him and everybody else? What choices are you making that might be isolating you from everybody else? What choices are you making that might be separating you from the group? That's separating you from the herd. But the good news of this story is it doesn't just end with Zacchaeus trying to get through the crowd. It ends on a much more positive note. So look at stage 2. Look at verses 3 and 4. Here's stage 2. There's a curiosity that comes from that kind of emptiness. When you're empty like that, I think it naturally produces a kind of a curiosity in you. And look at verses 3 and 4. Zacchaeus was trying to see who Jesus was when it was unable because of the crowd, for he was small. Most Jewish people are small. Think 5'5" or so. He's smaller than that. I'm thinking probably 5 foot, maybe sub 5 feet. And so he couldn't get through the crowd, so he ran on up and climbed up in a sycamore tree because he wants to see Jesus passing through. So again, just to be blunt about it, he's short. We're talking about really short. Is a really short guy. Like if he went to a concert, he'd be in the back row staring at somebody's belt buckle or something. This is a little fella, and so he's got 2 problems on this day. One is he has a very guilty heart because he's cheating his people, cousins, brothers, probably his parents, his friends. So he's got a guilty heart. And number 2, he's short. He has a short frame. He's a little short fella. But don't miss the big picture. What's he doing? Searching for something. He understands there's an emptiness. And that emptiness in him is calling out for him to search something out. What can I find? Something inside him said, I've got to see this guy named Jesus. Don't know anything about him. Never laid eyes on him before. I don't know what he can do for me. Don't even know if he'll care about me. But I've got to put my eyes on him. I got to see him. And so here's what he did. When he started really searching, he didn't care how foolish he looked. Look what he did. 2 things. He ran. Jewish men don't run. That's one of the prodigal son stories. Pretty impactful. And he climbs up in a tree. They certainly didn't do that. So here's a Jewish guy that runs through the crowd, climbs up in a tree, and he's just abandoning all dignity and everything else. In other words, he is so curious about Jesus. He's so empty inside, so lonely inside. He's seeking something so strongly that he don't care what it looks like to anybody else. We do that. When people come to the altar and get saved, that's what they do. They don't care how they look. They don't care how people perceive them. All they know is they have to get to Jesus. That's all they know. And so that's what Zacchaeus did. Again, people didn't act like him in this culture. This curiosity that he had, it was really bugging him. He had to know. It did not come from some kind of comfort. It came from emptiness. He was absolutely empty. And so watch this. Let me make a couple of points about this. Earthly success never satisfies the soul. If anybody should have been satisfied, it should have been him. Any kind of earthly success, this guy, he had it all. Money, status, a great job, a pension plan, but something was missing in his life. All this earthly success that he had, it didn't make him happy. It was not satisfactory. Again, you don't climb up in a tree wearing a tunic unless you're really, really empty and you're really, really searching for something. That's what he did. Listen to Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 8. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor is the ear filled with hearing. You know what that means? Imagine that a guy spends 20 years restoring his dream car, paints it, fire engine red or something, rebuilds the engine, all that stuff. It's 20 years, money, time, all that stuff. Then when he gets it all fixed up, he has nowhere to drive it to. That's kind of what Zacchaeus is experiencing. It's this, I've got it all. I've got everything. I just don't know what to do with it now. Anything that people are really searching for, I have. but I don't know how to handle it. That's why it saddens me a lot of times when you look at these celebrities, and I hesitate to use the word celebrity because I really don't want to give them that kind of influence, because I don't really care anything about their lives, to be honest with you. But all these professional athletes, all these movie stars, TV stars, I mean, just look at what's going on in the news with this P. Diddy stuff. I mean, that guy's got more money than all of Hollywood put together, and he's absolutely insane. I mean, I don't know any other way to say. He's just crazy. He does some really sick things. And you would think if anybody has a right to be satisfied, it would be somebody like him. But you read about all these celebrities that just fall like dominoes. And you think, man, and we say things like, if I just had that kind of money, if I just had all those cars and those houses and those big, $15 million mansions in Beverly Hills, I'd be on top of the world. But those kind of things don't satisfy the soul. There's something missing for Zacchaeus. He had all this stuff. He's the first century Jericho celebrity of all celebrities, and he's absolutely empty inside. Now, again, if earthly success, what's the flip side of it? If earthly success can't satisfy your soul, then spiritual hunger can absolutely overcome the pride that you have. Because people have all this pride. I want to do this. But if you get spiritually hungry enough, you don't care how you look. You don't care what you do. You don't care what you have to say. You just want to seek Jesus. You just want to find him. You don't care what people say. It's like when you finally come to Jesus in a one-on-one, just me and Jesus, I see him for who he is. It's like you're the only person in the world. You don't see the people next to you or a whole room full of auditorium full of people. You just don't care, because that spiritual hunger that you have overrides the pride that's been dominating your life. Look at Zacchaeus. He didn't let his reputation stop him. He didn't care who was watching. He just climbed up in a tree wearing a man dress. I mean, he didn't care. He was ready to see Jesus. He, first of all, ran like a wild man, and then he climbed up a tree just to get a glimpse of Jesus. Here's what Matthew records Jesus is saying in Matthew 5, verse 6. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. For righteousness. Listen to what Jesus said. For they shall be satisfied. Not those that are hungering and thirsting after possessions and earthly success, but those that are hungering and thirsting after righteousness. Those are the ones that will be satisfied. But pride keeps a lot of folks stuck. It keeps a lot of folks white knuckling the pews on Sunday because they just don't want to walk down in front of folks. They're embarrassed, they're scared, whatever. A lot of people don't want to join a life group or a Sunday school or whatever because they're afraid somebody's going to ask them a question or call on them to pray. A lot of people don't want to go to a prayer meeting because they're afraid people's going to put them on the spot. And so they just keep pretending that everything's fine. But it's really not fine. Because their pride is keeping them from experiencing something great in God's kingdom. But Zacchaeus came to the point where he said, I'm going to toss all this out the window because I just need to see Jesus. I just need to see him. That's the way it is.